Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I have another classic movie review, and this film is my tribute to Sir Roger Moore, who passed away several weeks ago. I've just reviewed The Saint recently on my channel, which was one of his last screen credits, which I was going to do as a tribute to him, but it wouldn't have been a fair tribute because he's not really in that movie very much. So I wanted to look back on his catalogue and choose probably, I would say, what is my favourite Roger Moore film, and it is this. It is North Sea Hijack. It was made in 1980, and it was right at the height of his Bond fame. I think it was right after Spy Who Loved Me and just before Moonraker. I think something like that. Um, Now, this film didn't do particularly well financially, and over the years, Roger Moore has been quoted as saying things like he thought it was terribly miscast in it, but also he's also been quoted as saying that it was he think it's better than any Bond film he ever made. So I think he blew hot and cold on it himself personally. Myself, I think it's one of his best films. Only really mainly because of the character that he plays in it. But there you go. So he's a bit been a bit indecisive about it over the years himself. And it's also got in the film we have Roger Moore, uh, we have James Mason, Anthony Perkins from Psycho, Michael Parks, Faith Brooke. Let's see if there's anybody else that we might recognise from a film this old. No, not really. Um, and so, like I say, this didn't do particularly well financially. My understanding is, and I also believe the reason was it was kind of sold as an action movie. It was so because it was height of his Bond career. Um, it was missold, and people are thinking they were going to get a really high octane action movie similar to the Bond movies, but you don't. What you really get here is a pretty decent thriller with a little bit of action thrown in at the end. And if you go into expecting this, you'll have a decent time with this movie. So what do we get? Well, the movie starts at the beginning. You've got Anthony Perkins, who's the leader of like his terrorist gang. They get onto this boat, like a haulage boat. Um, by pretending to be reporters, I believe it is. And what they're actually doing is they have planted bombs on the two oil rigs, and they then hold the British government to ransom by saying, if you don't pay us this huge amount of money, so I think it's like 100 million, something like that, or it might be a billion, by this time we're going to blow up these bombs. We're going to blow up these bombs and blow up these oil rigs. And they just, obviously, the British government can't afford that. But who they actually go to help is Roger Moore, folks, who has his own specialist unit that he trains in Scotland, at this castle in Scotland. They're like an elite, almost like a cross between SAS, Navy SEALs unit that is designed specifically to take down threats at sea. And they go to him to come up with a plan. But what they don't realise is that he's actually a miserable old sod, Roger Moore, in this movie, who's got no patience for anybody apart from his cats. He does crocheting in his spare time, mainly about cats. He's just very sexist and no patience at all, but he's an absolute genius when it comes to tactical like warfare and planning attacks like this. So he comes on board and his team is prepped and ready to go, and they come up with a plan of how to try and take down these terrorists who are on this tug. But also, what you've got on this tug, you've got another story going on. You've got the people on this tug who have been taken hostage by the terrorists, who keep constantly trying to come up with plans about how they can A, escape, and B, stop the terrorists. So you've got like at two folds, you've got the plan that Roger Moore and the characters are building on their side, and you've got the people on the tug that are trying to save their own lives and also stop the terrorists. So you've got a nice little tug of war on stories going on there, and right in the middle you've got Anthony Perkins, who plays a wonderful baddie in this movie. He's a really, really good bad guy, and he gives a really good performance. Everybody gives good performances, but right at the top here, I think this is one of Roger Moore's finest performances. That one of my fondest memories as a child was watching this movie with my dad, who sadly is no longer with us. This was one of his favourite movies too, and I always remember when Roger Moore was being really grumpy or saying something that he shouldn't in this movie, the giggle that my dad always used to do. Um, and it's always stuck with me, that, and as I've grown up and matured, I've learnt to appreciate the movie even more for what it is. And it's a damn good fun movie. It's well made, but it is no action fest. It isn't a Bond movie as much as some of the posters and imagery might make you think it's like a Bond movie. It isn't at all. This character really couldn't be any further from Bond, other than the fact that you could argue that both this character and Bond are both pretty damn sexist. Um, so this is a real gem for you to dig up and find if you're wanting to look up a really good Roger Moore film at the absolute height of his fame and powers in Hollywood. This is it. North Sea Hijack. A really good tense thrill, a little bit of action thrown in, some really good humour. I mean, some of the things that he says, you just can't believe it. He's such a miserable old sexist sod, but you can't help but like his character. So I really do recommend that you seek this movie out. A real 80s classic.